Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the Jazz Standard here in New York City. Bassist, composer, and educator Robert Hurst has had a stellar 2013 into 2014. As you might know, he continues to tour and record with the great Diana Krall as well as Chris Bodie, but he also won his 7th Grammy collaborating with the great Sir Paul McCartney for his Standards recording, which was produced by the great Tain, a.k.a. We sat down early and we talked about his whirlwind experience working with both Tommy as well as Paul McCartney, as well as talk about his role as assistant professor at the University of Michigan. As you might know, Robert has been a young lion, and now he's in the role of now educating as well as mentoring the next generation of jazz musicians that are coming out of the University of Michigan. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Mr. Robert Hurst and his quintet live here at the Jazz Standard, here on the Pace Report, here in New York City. Bob, every time we break bread, you just continue to just move musically forward. I mean, congratulations on the Grammy, your 7th one with Paul McCartney.
Oh, thanks.
Tell me, one, how Paul approached you for the project, and two, in the back of your head, working and going into the studio recording with him, that must have been a culture shock for you.
It was a little bit. I mean, I was just kind of in awe, because he's such an icon, So that was really shocking to get. I got the call from the producer, Tommy, a.k.a. and Diana Krall was kind of assisting with some of the material. So yeah, that's how it came about. And then Paul was just extra cool. I mean, he made the effort to be very, very, very cool. So I really appreciated that and made everybody feel comfortable. And he was telling stories and making real silly jokes, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I wish I had kind of in retrospect, I wish I had gone for it a little more, because I think he was one that we were kind of a little conservative, but it worked out great. I mean, the album sounds great, and we ran into a cab driver yesterday that was first of all a female cab driver in New York, which you don't see, and she was playing that record when we got in the cab after our rehearsal yesterday. So that was kind of fun.
You're working with Tommy LaPuma, who is another heavyweight in the record industry. What was that like? Because this man's caliber and cadre of artists that he's recorded and produced throughout the years, that must have been intimidating also.
Well, that was my first time working with him, and he's not intimidating at all. He's very approachable, and he works on I'm trying. He did Diana's the couple records that I played on with Diana Krall. He produced those, and we did some other stuff together that I can't think of right now. But he's very cool. He's very laid back, very kind of hands off and on at the same time. I mean, he doesn't say too much, but he sits right in the studio. He doesn't sit in the booth. He sits right in the middle of the studio, and his suggestions are always right on. It's always it's nothing frivolous or he's not the kind of guy to say, okay, we need another one just like that. Let's do 2 more takes. And once you got it, he's cool. You got it. Yeah.
Paul doing an album of standards, jazz standards at that. That was kind of a big pill for me to digest because we're so used to him doing Wings and solo McCartney and then the Beatles.
His own great song.
There you go. Now, tell me about the song selection for that, because I know that there were certain songs that represented Billie Holiday, Billy Strayhorn, and even some of the Great American Songbook.
It's mostly the Great American Songbook. I mean, the tunes that we recorded were recorded by jazz musicians, but it wasn't a lot of like actual jazz tunes that were composed by jazz musicians. And he was really in touch with all of that material, and I think he had been really wanting to do it, but so many other people, Rod Stewart did like I think 3 or 4 volumes of standards, so he kept putting it off because all of these other rock stars were doing like these standards record, but he approached it very organically, and at one point he was kind of he didn't know how when we first started he was trying to find his approach. And I remember at one point he kind of channeled Billie Holiday, and he went into her voice, and he started singing the stuff like her. And then that helped, it seemed like that helped him to get to the phrasing and get to the meat of the song. And then, slowly he started, singing in his own voice. And there was another tune he did like kind of in a Louis Armstrong type of voice. And he wasn't really making fun of it. He was just trying to find his way through kind of channeling those musicians, and I thought that was really a cool approach, and it worked, really worked.
What did you as a bassist bring to that whole entire project?
I was just trying to stay out the way, and just really just trying to stay out of the way and create like a nice tone, nice bed, because I knew they were going to put. We didn't record with the strings. They overdubbed the strings. So, I was just trying to leave space for like whatever they were going to put on it, and just play a tune, have a nice beat. Kareem Riggins was on it, so that's my man. So just hook up with Kareem and have the rhythm section be really, really tight.
Tain, when was the first time you were aware of Robert Hurst?
Oh, I guess I met Robert Hurst. I think it was 1980 in Pittsburgh. I was at home for the summer from my first semester at the Berklee College of Music. And he came to town with a group of musicians from Detroit that included Jerry Allen, Marcus Belgrave, and Lawrence Williams, and I think Mike Mossman was also playing. And I think he was 15 or 16 years old then. And he was already very, very accomplished.
What was it about his musicianship that has kept him on the fronting edge of bassist of your generation of the Young Lions?
Oh man, well I mean his criteria is very high. He holds, it's something that even though the music has to, it's going to change and things like that, but I feel like you still should hold yourself responsible for the body of the music. And I feel like some people are trying to go around that and say that a lot of the older music has been done. You can still do your fresh music and your contemporary music, but that's what makes the difference with him, because he does know and can demonstrate what Jimmy Blanton has played and what Paul Chambers has played and a whole bunch of what Mingus has played and written. It's like when you just decide to deal with this music, you try to make yourself responsible for the body of it, or as much of the body as you can stand, and not just like this little corner that I like and that and this and whatever. So I think that's made a big difference with him. It's all very informed musicianship.
You guys were like a band of brothers in the 80s, you and Winton and Branford.
Sure.
What was it about those particular groups and those recordings? Because you guys made some monumental recordings at that time. Mm-hmm. What was it about those records that were very special that stick out now after 30 years?
It's unbelievable. It sounds like everybody's really sincere. And, there's different compositions that work, but everybody's still trying to have it. Everybody is trying to aspire for it to be worthy of being a part of the lineage of this great music. Yeah.
You're on the band stage with a very dear friend tonight, Jeff Tain Watts, and you guys go back to really the beginning of your career with Winton when you started playing back in the early mid 80s. Mm-hmm. Looking back at now, where did you see Tain back then and him now? Did you see and did you think that he was going to be the icon that he's become, like you have become in jazz music?
Whether the iconic part, I don't know, but I knew he was going to be bad. I mean, I could just, I met Tain when I was 16. I did a gig with Marcus Belgrave. Well, it's actually Jerry Allen's gig, but Marcus Belgrave and I and Lawrence Williams. We drove from Detroit to go play with Jerry. I think it was her master's recital or something, but it was like a gig. She had some funding and everything, and then after the gig, she played at this after hours club in Pittsburgh, and that's where I met Tain, and he just blew me away. I mean, there was I hadn't heard like young guys that had that kind of just intellectual capacity in their playing, and he had studied Tony Williams, and he was he was more into fusion, like he was into Tony, but also Billy Cobham and Lenny White and Narada Michael Walden, and he was just getting not just getting into, but he was really starting to develop his jazz chops. So, but he played so great, and we had like a immediate rapport. And years later, when I was a freshman at Indiana University, he called me, and he was the first call. When I got to my room, he was my first incoming call that I got, and he approached me about doing Winton's gig and we've been playing on and off for 30 years, 30 plus years, and that feels so weird to say that, but I think we have a great connection, and I love him to death, and he's such a wonderful musician.
with Bob Hurst. These are guys that you grew up listening to. And you're like 3 generations into the next generation of jazz.
Yeah, this is the guy I was listening to. You know, the first CD that I bought was Crazy People Music, Branford Marsalis, and it had Tain Robert Hurst on it. These guys were my heroes, and from them I learned about the lineage of the music, followed who they followed, and learned so much about myself, about the music, about my culture, everything. So it's definitely the highest honor that I can think of. You know, these are the guys that started it all. They inspired me. Yeah.
Coming from listening to playing on the band stage, what's it like?
Oh man, it's I guess it's a very good preparation. You know, that's mostly what it's about. It's about listening to what's around you. So like I kind of cheated by listening to them all my life. I can kind of anticipate some things that they're doing because I've learned their language a lot. So you know, I'm very glad that they chose me to play some of their gigs. You know, I'm really liking it, and it's like home for me. You know, I grew up with it.
You know, Bob, I go back to you with 2 ensembles, Out of the Blue, Kenny Garrett and Ralph Peterson. And then I also go back to Wynton Marsalis and those great records in the 80s. You know, we're in 2014, and now the role has changed. You're now an educator at the University of Michigan. What is it that you are trying to impart on the next generation of jazz musicians, and how important now do you feel that you being a young lion that you are making an impact to jazz music now?
Wow. Well, I guess, you know, the impact that I'm making will be seen, you know, in the future. It's hard for me to really determine that. But as far as education and all of that, I really want to instill, like, you know, with me coming up, playing with Marcus Belgrave and Wynton and OTB, not so much. We were all kind of peers, you know, all kind of the, we weren't all exactly the same age, but we were all young musicians. So, but there's a spirit of mentorship that happens in the music, how it's passed down. And you can get to a certain clinical level in the classroom, you know, about, you know, this is the scale that you play on this chord, and this is what you do here, and you know, learn these tunes and learn these solos. But then there's also a mentorship of what you do on stage, what happens in real time on the stage, and because it's different every night, you know, it's really interesting. The educational part of it is just as much a mystery as the actual performance part of it. So, you know, I kind of improvise and definitely freestyle in my music lessons as well as my classes, because everybody has different needs at different times. So, you know, I have like a basic curriculum, but I rarely follow it because, you know, I mean, the students are so different, and they have different aspirations and different wants and needs and where they're going. So I try to just point them to what I think is the best thing to listen to and all of that kind of stuff. But I want them to be the best them. You know, I'm not trying to make them sound like me or trying to make them sound like McCoy Tyner, or, I mean, which is impossible anyway. But you know, they can only be them, and they're the best them that they could. You know, hopefully they'll be the best them that they could be. You know, because nobody else can be them. You know, and I try to make them realize, you know, that their unique perspective is really important.
You know, Bob, the important part of the education part, you know, you have a great faculty member who's now getting ready to go on to greener pastures, Jerry Allen. And being part of that Young Lions crew, do you see that your peers who came up in the 80s, do you see them doing exactly what you're doing now, the mentoring part, the grooming part, and also the education part?
I do, and it's that wasn't always the case. You know, I think this probably within the last 10, 12 years, universities are hiring people like myself and Jerry Allen and you know, my man Mulgrew Miller and all of these people that can actually play, you know, and not somebody that just wrote a great dissertation on jazz. There's a lot of people that like that have just they've done the research, they've done the schoolwork on the jazz and all the class work, which that's important as well. But I think they're hiring people that can actually do it, and there's no substitute from that. It's hard to learn how to play from just like a PhD in music or jazz education. You have to, how I learn how to play and how everybody that can play. How everybody that I know that can play, they learn from playing. They learn from the masters in this mentorship thing that we're talking about, and that's being lost. There's no more Betty Carters. There's no more Art Blakey's, Freddie Hubbard's, Miles Davis. So it's a I'm kind of. I don't envy them at all. People that are trying to learn how to play, because to learn how to play is not easy. But I think when you can go see Art Blakey and Ray Brown and people like that, play, that makes it a little easier because you hear like that real thing. But now people don't have that. They have everything on YouTube that you could possibly imagine. But it's not hearing Ray Brown on YouTube is not the same as hearing him at I remember the first time I heard was at the Blue Note, and it's not the same.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Jazz Standard here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the talented Bob Hurst for his time, as well as the staff and management here at the Jazz Standard for their warm hospitality. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.